Amen.
And I'm going to ask if you want to go back, and if you don't, you don't. But if you want to go back to what you were saying about the connection ritual, you wanted to say something about it or ask
Yeah, absolutely.
something?
Nice
Okay.
segue there, Robin. Yeah, so as you know, last week we were trying to do the interview and had some technical difficulties, and I was being overly judgmental about myself and kind of stressing as I do. And Amanda actually recommended it. I just go meditate. And well, I was like, shoot, I'm reading Robin Rose's book right now, and I'd come across the connection ritual, which you have kind of early on in the book. I want to say before you even get into the plants. And I
Right.
was like, well, that sounds like a perfect meditation. And, we have a very tiny yard, zero point 0.1 acre, but just down the street, there's this beautiful juniper tree. And mind you, it's 5 degrees. We're recording this in December in
Hmm.
Wisconsin, and it was 5 degrees out, but I was like, shoot, I'm going to go out there anyways. 5, 10 minutes. I sat with the juniper tree under the tree, and I like how you specify you could either be like facing it, you could have your back against it. If you're hanging out with a smaller plant, it might be a different story. But I was hanging out with the tree. I sat against the back with my back against the tree, and I just started kind of breathing with it, breathing in and out, and picturing me sharing the breath with the juniper tree. And first of all, that was really relaxing, but then I started making these observations, and one of the observations I noticed was I feel like when I'm looking at a plant, sometimes I could start to think, oh, this juniper tree is just its berries or just its branches or just its trunk. And when I was sitting there, I want to say I was maybe more than 5 minutes, but below 10 minutes. And by the end of the meditation or the ritual, I realized that this tree wasn't just any one part of the plant. It was a whole being. And it seems so obvious, but sometimes I forget this. Like, we'll talk
Yeah.
about this more later. We live in this high, fast-paced techie world, and even someone like me who's in the herbal community, I interview herbalists for a living. I'll forget this sometimes, and in the dead of winter, all I had to do was go out there, connect with this plant, see it as this full, beautiful being, and not just as like some sort of commodity for my herbal medicine or something like that. But it was there. I was being with it. I was living with it. I was breathing with it, and I just felt so grateful and present by the end of that, and it did the job.
I love that story. And the other side of it is that it is a reciprocal blessing because that juniper tree also not only gave to you, but received from you and had the, in whatever tree way one does this. I'm not a tree, so I can't say, but had the opportunity, if you will, to give to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the plants love to give, right? Just like how it feels good to us to give of ourselves when it's an act of generosity, not if we feel like burdened with obligation and so forth, right?
Yeah.
But it was Kiwe Dinokwe who said that I'll never forget. I didn't have a lot of time with her, but the little time I had with her was so influential to me. And she said, of all the beings of the earth, the plants are the most generous.
Mm.
They have followed their
Wow.
original instructions from Creator, which is to give of themselves, to all the beings, right? They give to the air, they clean the air, they clean the water. So that's always stayed with me. And I opened my first book, Healing Magic, with that quote, or it's right near the beginning anyway. It meant a lot to me, right? Because it introduced this idea of, it's a consciousness. It's an act of consciousness on their part to give,
Mm.
right? It's not just like I'm taking from you, right? It's reciprocal. It's give and receive. When I see it all the time. I grew up, quote unquote, as an herbalist in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
My first 10 years, I was in New York City. And to this day, there's trees I can go back to in the city and I can feel them
Mm.
respond. They're like, oh, it's you, you're here,
That's cool.
And I understand that there are many people in mainstream who think this kind of conversation is crazy, but unfortunately, they're also, just lacking in that openness to that we're meant to be in kinship with everything of the earth. And, there's a reason why depression and anxiety and heart failure and everything so forth, is so epidemic
Mm.
right? And it is that lack of connectedness, of feeling kindred that you can go to your. I went to a pine tree near here one day when I was just really disappointed in a way that somebody had treated me. And
Mm.
I kept trying to shake it with my intellect, and I kept trying to say it didn't matter. And it was eating me out. It was bothering me. And I went to my pine tree, my pine of peace, and I felt better,
Mm.
And so yeah, the I put the rituals in the beginning before so that kids would learn to, a framework for approaching herbal medicine, not just the commodity. And we can all fall into that. We're all human, right?
Yeah.
And it's even like seeing one of your faults and thinking that's all you are, right?
Yeah.
We all do that, but the more we can witness it and be kind to ourselves, and I think one of the gifts of getting older is I let go of these things much quicker.
It's great. I love
You
to hear
know,
that.
yeah. So that's what I also wanted to encourage kids with this book is like getting older is awesome,
Yeah.
right? Every message in our culture is you just basically you peak at 22 or whatever, right? And it's all downhill from there, and it's just ludicrous, and
Yeah.
it's self-defeating in a big way.
Oh, yeah. I remember when I was younger dealing with a lot of mental health stuff, I was like, I can't wait to get older because I just intuitively knew that I would give less shit. So I'm glad that
There you
hear
go.
that you confirmed that. Um,
Absolutely,
while,
absolutely.
while we're talking about the connection ritual, I was thinking, oh, I want to build this into my practice or my daily practice. But then I realized saying a practice is almost like downplaying what it actually is. What we're really doing here is we're building relationships with these plants. And it's
Mhm.
like, do I want to build my practice of, hanging out with Amanda or my friends? No, I want to like build deeper relationships with these plants, right?
That's a great point. Yeah, that's beautiful. Although I guess you could have a practice of it, meaning you're dedicated to building and deepening relationships. But
Fair.
yes, yeah,
Okay.